of fun. All right, welcome in Campo and Joe on a beautiful Thursday morning here on the First Coast, ready to fire it up. A little Campo and Joe C from XL Primetime, and that's our head coach, Dave Campo. You're looking good, Coach.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is my favorite time right here, talking to my buddies and everybody from Jacksonville, whether it's on the Primetime show or whether it's Campo and Joe.
You got that right. So what we do is we talk Jaguar football, and we appreciate all of Duval and anybody else who tunes in on our social channels, be it YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, whatever it might be. We totally appreciate it. So Yoda's producing us today, and we are ready to rock and roll. We got to get into a handful of big storylines, an embarrassing loss, how do you bounce back from it, and then, of course, the Travis Hunter news. So you guys, if you do find us on YouTube, you want to jump in the chat, that's real easy. Throw some comments up. You can do the same thing on IG or X, and Jacob will let us know if we've got any of those that we want to throw up on the screen. They got to be worthy, right, Coach? A good comment. We like them.
Well, listen, our fans are pretty good about throwing out the things that really mean something, and that's because they've been following this team for a long time. They kind of know the pros and the cons, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is 100% the truth. They're diehard Duvalers, passionate as can be. So let's get to the biggest piece of news, which is, of course, what happened with Travis Hunter. And look, Coach, it ain't pretty when you have something like that happen, especially when you start to look and see, hey, did we get anywhere near the full potential of Travis Hunter? He ended up playing close to 65, maybe even 66 snaps per game, but you only saw him in the end zone once. You only saw him over the 100-yard mark once, and the season is done. A hell of a blow.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to swallow, especially what you gave up to get the young man. But listen, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And I think the biggest thing with him, the thing that's going to be still, everybody's going to be saying the same thing about it, is playing both ways. Is he doing too much? Is it hurting his body to the point where he's injury prone? Now that remains to be seen, because I think getting the surgery now, he's going to be fully healthy for OTAs, I'm sure, and into the training camp and into the season. So, that's always going to be out there. Now, as far as what he was doing, I think he was just starting to come into his own as far as them getting out of him what they wanted to get out of him. Yeah. But the question is going to be, does he have to play one side of the ball? Can he still play both? And that's an issue because of what they gave up to get it.
All right. So when you think about it, and again, you've been a coach, you were a coach for many, many, many years, head coach at Dallas, defensive coordinator all over the place, defensive coach here in Duval. Do you hit the pause button on playing him both ways? Or is that way too early to suggest that playing too much led to an injury like this?
Well, I mean, I think it's a little early. I mean, I think, what he did in practice probably could have happened to anybody. We don't know exactly what caused that injury.
Right.
There are guys that only play 15 plays a game and injure their knee in a game or in practice. I mean, that's the game of football. So we don't know that. That's why I say it's still going to be out there with everybody that's looking at this team, whether it's fans, media, national media, whatever. Everybody, a lot of people look at the negative, unfortunately, and they're probably looking at it and saying, hey, look, who knows? Was he out there too much? Was he in total condition? And remember, he just went through a season where he played a bunch of college games and then pro games right behind it.
Yeah.
So, next year that won't be the case. Next year it'll just be the NFL and that's it. So I think you'll find out more next year on where they feel he is and where he's going.
Yeah, it's just a kick in the shorts. And look, the naysayers are out there. And look, I can be a doubter just like anybody else. You have to point out things that you see and feel. And the one thing that immediately jumped out to me is that it was great when you picked one guy to play two spots, but when one guy gets hurt, it hurts two spots.
Correct.
And so now you don't have a guy on the defensive side maybe locking up. Let's just use this past week as an example, locking up with a Nico Collins who went over 100 yards, or beating a Derek Stingley Jr. and finding the end zone. So those are going to be the criticisms of Jimmy Gladstone going for it and reaching high and trading another first-round pick to have this guy.
Yeah, and I think that's a natural thing, and I think listen, I'm probably 80% positive on just about everything. I kind of approach the day that way, but when you really look at it, there's 20% in me right now that's saying the same thing. We don't know. That's the thing, and I think you have to stick with the positive until you absolutely know the negative.
Yeah, you have to and embrace whatever might be ahead for him. I don't know that they'll be any more cautious. We were talking about this on XL Primetime yesterday, Coach, that they slowly bridged him up to the extra work. They didn't overload him immediately. They didn't say, hey, you're a pro now. We picked you for both sides. Get your tail out there and get it going. They were measured in the way that they decided to expose him to whatever, total play count, anything. And it just, the great thing you said earlier, which people need to hear it, it's true. You could be out there for 10 plays and rip up your knee.
Right. And I think that, the way they went about it is the right way to do it. It was kind of what we felt right along when we were talking about it in the off season, prior to everything getting going. They kind of used him based on where they thought they needed help at a particular time. In other words, if they didn't feel like they needed to play him on defense, they didn't play him that much that week, that particular week. Right. If they felt they needed him more there, they played him a little bit more there than they did on offense. You can only, that's a learning experience in itself. And I think that the one thing they got out of it is they have a pretty good idea of what they can do and how they can use them. Now, again, the question comes up, is it too much? Is it, where's that at? And I think we'll find that out, as we go into next year.
All right. So let's get to what happened Sunday. Coach, you and I were texting back and forth. We're all watching this game. It was one of the bigger fails this franchise has ever been through in a regular season game. And I don't know that it could have played out worse because of the quick start, the opportunities that Houston handed to Jacksonville, and you had a 19-point lead with 12 minutes to go, and this team found a way to blow it.
Yeah, unfortunately that happened. And I'll tell you what, it was a gut check, for everybody. First of all, I've seen guys come back or teams come back from leads like that before. This isn't the first time I've seen that. We saw one 2 years ago, I think it was, or 2022, whatever it was, in that game against the Chargers, who we're playing this week. It can happen in this league because it really comes down to what do you do on every single play. We talk about that all the time. It's not, each game is different, how it's going to go. I think the thing that we've got to really, fans have to look at and the team has to look at is that this defense is not a great group of defensive players when they have to be on the field too much. And the offense has been a little bit too inconsistent to keep them off the field. And, we've been great against the run. A perfect example is we've been great against the run until the fourth quarter the other day when they just pounded us. And the reason for it was they were on the field too much. Yeah. So, this isn't just about a bad defense. I think, a lot of it comes down to, hey, listen, back in the day, we were sort of bend but don't break. That was kind of our philosophy. We weren't going to do something that was going to give the game away. We were going to force them to make plays. Right. Well, our offense back in Dallas, back in the day, and in Jacksonville, was they pound and ground, kept the football, didn't make a lot of mistakes. So this is a team deal. This is not just about the defense, but our defense is not one that's going to shut somebody down unless they turn the ball over. a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And that's what we have here right now. And that's why I say it's not just about this year.
Yeah, because you do have to think bigger picture. I keep saying Duval wasn't built in a day, and there's a lot of stuff that's left over from the Balky-led franchise to what Jimmy Gladstone's and the rest of them have to basically pick up and fix. And there is no escaping the fact, like you said, there aren't a ton of playmakers on the defensive side. Now, what ticks you off, or at least what fires me up, Coach, is that there are first-round players all over the place, on the offense, on the defense, the quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, the pass, both rush ins, the interior lineman and Eric Armstead, on and on and on. And they just need to get more out of these guys in these crucial times. And it could be either that third down stop or that first down play.
Well, first of all, they're not good enough to win consistently on third down. Mm-hmm. They're just not good enough. And here's how I look at the defense. And maybe I'm getting too technical or whatever, but I thought Liam Cohen made a great point. I don't know how many of the fans look at his press conference. Mm-hmm. Okay. And one of the things he said in the press conference makes sense to me after doing it for a long time. He made the comment that because they've improved in the run, mm-hmm. okay, and they have improved with the run until that fourth quarter when they got hammered because they were tired, okay? But because they've improved on the run, they're getting more passing on first and second down, okay? Now, my form of defense going back years has been what I call match zone. In other words, you match routes with your underneath people, and you're pretty close to routes. It's kind of a combination of man and zone, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they don't use a man and zone. They use spot drop zone, okay? Right. And here's what's happening according to Liam, and I agree with him, is that they're getting a lot of passes on first and second down where it's less than 2.5. It's, 2.5, 2.7 getting the ball off, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, if you're not close to routes, there's going to be in a zone defense a lot of open areas, and you're not going to be able to react to them. You're not going to be able to see what the quarterback is, where he's looking, what his mannerisms are. And so it's really not a true drop back that they're getting, but it's also not a quick. It's in between there. They're getting into areas and they're throwing the ball right now, and it's not just 4 yards or 3 yards, it's 8 yards, 10 yards. And our secondary is not being aggressive enough at the sticks.
Yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
When that's happening, your secondary has to be, he calls it sticky. I call it is understanding that ball's coming out quick, and you can't just blow out of there. We're not giving up really big plays.
Right.
We're giving up yardage. That's the thing that's killing us on defense.
Yeah. Now, before they were giving up big plays, they were giving up the explosives, which were just terrible. The 50-yarder, the 40-yarder, all those types of things. But what you're saying is just from a aptitude standpoint, know where that chain is, know where that fourth down marker or first down marker is, and play to that spot. I think that's what you're saying, and I 100% agree with it. The other part of it is, and this is the kick in this shorts part of it, is that there's no pressure on the quarterback.
Right, and that's the
asking your quarterbacks to
really comes that they're getting the ball out too quick. You don't have a chance for the outside guys to do anything really. The guys that who's leading our team in sacks, right?
It ain't pretty. Yeah, it ain't pretty.
Right. And that's my point. Those guys can affect those passes because they're right in the guy's face. Yeah. Right. And you beat the guy one-on-one inside. The outside guy's got to have a little time. The ball has to be in the quarterback's hands long enough for those guys to be effective. And that's why, Joe, I say all the time, the best pass rushes we've had is when somebody inside blows up the field and the outside guys come underneath and get the quarterback's face because they're beating those interior linemen. They're not beating those outside guys, sometimes because maybe they're not quite as good enough, but also because they don't have the time to get there.
Yeah. And if you're right, if it's a quick passing game, hardly anyone's going to get there. But let's throw Robert's comment up on the screen, because this is honestly, like we said, this is still a bulky build that the regime now has to basically fix and overcome. But he says, hate to say it, Balky could have changed the defense with the Hutchinson pick instead of Walker across from Josh. And there's really no getting away from that, because you're talking about a shop wrecker in Aiden Hutchinson. The numbers don't lie, Coach.
Yep.
When healthy, he makes it tough for opposing quarterbacks, and this team's not doing enough of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that Trayvon has not improved the way I thought he would. And again, I think he's still really a good player.
Yeah.
He's an 8 sack a year guy, which is okay. That's a pretty good player. That's a consistent player. But Hutchinson obviously has proven that he's a rolling ball of butcher knives. I mean, he's one of those guys that can make all kinds of different moves and all that kind of stuff. If you're forcing teams on third down to hold the football,
right,
then a guy like Trayvon Walker can be a sacker, because he's physical enough that he can knock the guy back. And then if they've got time to get off the block, he can make plays. But when the way they're attacking us, I don't think we're going to be effective anywhere, to be honest with you. But Hutchinson obviously has proven he's a good player. There's no doubt.
And by the way, Trayvon got jobbed by the refs on the sack, because you're talking about 2 huge plays, and you can't blame officiating for why you lost a game, because there's too many other things they could have done to win. But still, that penalty, and I thought it was a hell of a good play.
It was.
You're even though your helmet is right here and you do make contact with the upper part of the body, you were leading with your shoulder. It was just BS. And then the Jarian Jones PI puts him right at the 1 yard or 3 yard line, and it was a spot foul, and it set up another score. And we all know how quickly they got in the end zone. But bottom line is, you can't use the officials as an excuse. You just can't.
No, and you've heard me say before that when they put the rule in that you couldn't launch, Darren Woodson, who was my favorite player of all time, the safety from Dallas, came into the room and said, I can't play football this way. And I said, well, then let me explain something to you. Somebody else will be playing, not you, because that's the rule. So you got to figure out how to do your thing without launching. It's very simple. So I think some of that is the fact that guys have to use sometimes it's going to happen. I mean, these are guys that are trying to get there, and you see sometimes a guy fighting to get there, and he comes a little low, and they call it he's cutting the quarterback's legs. Some of those things are going to happen, but you have to really, when you got a straight on shot, you got to make sure you're doing it the right way, or they're going to call it on the quarterback. That's the way it is in the league.
Yeah, it sucks. It really does. And I keep saying that you're using every bit. You may not be the fastest cat, so you're using every bit of your speed and force to get to the guy as quickly as you can, and then obviously deliver the hit to get him on the ground, and that didn't happen. All right, so there's obviously other things that we have to get to as far as what didn't go well, and then what they might be able to do to turn this thing around. Liabilities on both sides of the ball. The offensive line coach, Walker Little, honestly, he's devolving into a average to below average left tackle. And what Danielle Hunter did to him, illegal in 15 states, yet he was able to do it. And he just got after Trevor and put Trevor on the ground time and time again. All the other guys that were on the defensive side, that's a good defensive team for the Houston Texans. But still, this offensive line has gone back to being average and not nearly as tough as they need to be.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think Walker needs to play better. I mean, there's no question about it. He's a good athlete. I just don't know about the Leon Searcy.
Yeah,
I'm going to do whatever it takes. We haven't seen that since he's been here, and we've said that. That's something that we've said in shows. You've said in shows.
Right.
It hasn't materialized there, and good pass rushers. I think Liam also said that Trevor a few times got too deep in the pass drop.
Yes.
Those are fundamentals.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you're giving a guy a chance to run around the corner. That's kind of what I'm talking about. If you got the ball for a long time, those guys have a chance to make plays, but Walker has to get better.
Yeah, because that left tackle or right tackle, we ask Leon this all the time. You can push him up the field if your quarterback steps up in the pocket. You can send that defensive end going that way and your quarterback's going this way. And so this goes back to the footwork, the decision-making, the clock in his head. He was, and I know both of us pointed this out, it was great to see him step up in the pocket and still operate. And he's not doing that like he was doing it earlier in the season. And then people are kind of getting on Liam for him. Maybe this comment was yesterday, I believe. Anyway, he basically is telling Trevor, let it rip. Don't sit back there and think. Let it rip. And everyone's saying, what you're waiting until now to tell him this? Yeah, no, Coach, I think he's been telling him it for a while, and he's just telling him it again.
Yeah, and I think what gets into your head is, everybody says there's taking a profit is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's after everything else fails. It's not take a profit on the snap of the football. You follow what I'm saying? In other words, if you got a route thing going, if you don't get right where you're supposed to be and the receiver doesn't get where he's supposed to be, then there's going to be an issue, right? If you're too deep or if the receiver's too deep, whatever it is. But it's not one of those things where you say, I'm going to do the whole game. I'm going to throw the ball 5 yards to Brenton Strange.
Right.
I'm going to throw the ball or a dump down to Tootin. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do that when that deep dig is not there. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to me, what Liam is saying, sometimes I think the quarterback gets to the point where he turns the ball over a few times and he says, okay, I got to be more careful in what I'm doing.
Right.
Well, guess what? He's got to be like the guy at Cincinnati, Burrow. He doesn't care if he's going to get hit or not. He's throwing the football.
Right.
And that's kind of what he's talking about. And I'm not sure Trevor's there right now. And that's what he's kind of saying. And it probably should be said all the time.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is. I think he's just trying to reinforce something right now with Trevor. And I agree with you that we always tell the wide receiver, hey, you're going to get hit no matter what. Might as well hang on to the ball. Same thing with the quarterback. Might as well deliver the throw. And the crossing pattern, Coach, it drives me nuts that he did not lead training camp Trammell to where he could make a decent play at a critical time. Instead, Derek Stingley's able to stick one mid out and get a hold of that ball. And so those are the decisions. And that even looked like a shot put type of throw from Trevor. And so those are the moments. And you know how costly they can be.
Well, the thing that irritates you is obviously the guy, Trevor can make all the throws. I mean, as far as arm talent and all that. And after, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Yeah. The accuracy issue is part of it. I mean, and again, Liam has also said that the quarterback doesn't have to be a generational guy, which I've said right along. Just get the ball where it's supposed to go when it's supposed to go there, and where it's supposed to go.
Yeah,
and those are the things that Trevor is still not doing on a consistent basis. And I think a lot of times the offensive line, it's a combination. If the offensive line is not doing very well, then you got a problem. But also, if the offensive line is doing well and the quarterback's not doing well, you got a problem. Yeah. Either way, everything has to work together. And I think the thing that we have to stick with Trevor is I read all this stuff, hear all this stuff about, this guy's a bum, he's this, he's that, he's not the guy. Well, guess what? He had them in position to kick a field goal to win the football game, just like he did the week before.
Yeah.
But we get a hands to the face penalty, so there's positives. It just, it's just not, they're not putting everything together.
Yeah. When it's all said and done, they're not. And you can't, and I pointed this out, Coach, and you're right. He was a play away from winning a ball game. They're also a missed 2-point conversion by the Raiders from being on a 4-game losing streak. And so that's how quickly you can look at it one way or the other. And so I'm all for Trevor in the end making the play to deliver a win. He just he hasn't done it enough. That's for sure. All right, so Jacksonville was 4 of 11 on third down. Houston was 10 of 15. So when you're operating at 2/3 success against this defense and this offense is operating below 50%, it'll get you even right around 35, 40, less than 40%. So that's terrible. All right, so we only got a couple minutes left.
Well, you're going to see. Let me just say one thing quick.
Yeah.
You're going to see the same thing with this team we're playing this weekend.
Yeah,
because they're averaging 67% on third down, and their defense, they're high on third down offensively, right. But defensively they're 67% effective on third down.
They hold you down. Yeah, they hold you down. All right, so let's use the last couple of minutes on what you think you want to see, may see, will see Sunday.
Well, to me, I think, when the play's there, it has to be made. And I think we're going to have to continue to try to run the football and continue to run the football offensively. And this is not a team that's going to operate on third down and long offensively. Yeah. They have to operate at a better rate. And we haven't run the ball quite as effectively as we had early in the season. And that could be because of some injury factors and some issues. But we have to run the ball offensively in order for this quarterback to execute, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I was surprised in that game that they did not put Trevor on the move more than they did. I think I text that in the deal. Why are they running a boot pass? Get him on the edge. Because he's taking too much, he's having to hold the ball too much. They're not giving him a chance to do some other things. That surprised me. So I think they have to get him on the move more, especially if things are not going well. And so, I'm hoping that they can get the running game going. Their run defense is not their strength either. Their run strength is getting. Their strength is getting after the passer. So, we've got to be able to do that offensively.
It's the only way to get bodies off of Trevor is to create some type of moving pocket, some type of ability for him to be mobile and make those types of plays. The receivers aren't separating nearly as much as you'd like them to, although you did get Jacoby Myers with 3 grabs and 40-plus yards, so you'll take it. We'll find out what the injury report looks like later today and tomorrow for Brian Thomas Jr. I tell you what, Coach, I don't like their chances Sunday, but you never know. Well,
that's the thing. And I think, everybody asks all the time, how do they bounce back? Well, bouncing back is forgetting about what you did last week and not worrying about what you're going to do next week.
Yeah.
It's just put your focus on this game. And let me tell you something, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't. There's nobody going to go undefeated in this league. And that's the key to the whole thing. That's how you bounce back. Pay attention to what you're doing. Forget about last week and don't worry about the game after the next one that you play.
Yeah, 100%. The same team that beat the Kansas City Chiefs in an impressive fashion called the Buffalo Bills lost to the Miami Dolphins. So
correct.
It can happen in a heartbeat. That's for sure. All right, Coach, great stuff as always. We appreciate it. Coach Dave Campo, Joe C. from XL Primetime will have Coach on with us tomorrow as we'll look a little bit more at this game against the Chargers. Coach, enjoyed it as always.
Thank you. Enjoy it as well. Jacob, thanks a lot.
Yep, Yoda, good job producing our stream show. Campo and Joe, we'll talk to all of y'all next week, next Thursday morning.